or, all that. I'm never going to have a career in something like that. Okay, I'm good at what I do. And it took me a long time, especially in business, kind of understand that about myself. And I'm stubborn, I think, because I want to know everything. I want to be good at everything. And, eventually you just have to find acceptance and then go beyond that. But, if you're dealing with a very dark and tragic line, like you're unhappy, you are, thinking of suicide, then, if you can accept that you're doing that, then maybe you can start asking the questions of why you're doing that. If you can start looking at those, at the answers you come up with, then you can do something about it. But, until you accept it, you're never going to be able to get over it. And sometimes it can take, a week, take months, it can take years. It's all up to you and what you want to do. And there is a grieving period. I mean, if you're sad and something, has really happened in your life, something bad, like death, broken up with, someone you love, but until you accept the reason why, nothing's going to change. That is the overall theme of The Lonely Girl.
And what's the main message you're trying to get across to readers? What would you like them to pick up from this book?
I want them to walk away from this book, and take a look at their life and see if they actually fit that kind of profile. I want them to understand that acceptance is the first thing that you're going to do to get better and start the healing process in your own life. No matter how bad it is, no matter how embarrassing it is, acceptance is always the key. Okay, and that's the great thing about the two female characters in there, because they're opposite ends of the spectrum.
Okay.
You have one character that has been through all this, she has been to the top and all the way to rock bottom and pulled herself back up. She found acceptance in the things in her life and got better. And then you have the other character who is the most tragic, who refuses to accept anything. And even when it's staring her in the mirror, even when someone else who is just like her is pointing it out, she still can't accept it. And it is about what you do with it. So, by doing that, all that character is doing is trapping themselves in a prison. And those kind of prisons that are inside of us, we're the only one that has the key. We're the only there, and acceptance is the key to our freedom right now. So I want readers to be able to understand that, and not to be afraid to go down that dark road. We have to go down that dark road before we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and before we can fully understand everything. That's how we get better at our, with who we are. That's how we grow. So, don't be afraid of tragic times or bad times in your life. Accept things that have happened, whether it's your fault or they're not. There's a lot of bad things that happen to us that we have no control over. Your wife left you one day and you don't know why. Well, it happens. Mm-hmm. You cheated on your husband and you feel bad about it. Well, why did you cheat? Why do you have to use drugs to cope with your life? What is so bad in your life that you actually need that? So you find that acceptance, you're never going to get out of that part of your life. So hopefully readers will get that.
Hopefully so. You dedicate the book to someone you once loved. Is the book based on an ex?
That's all I'm going to say on that. An old friend, an ex, someone that I once loved. It was a very tumultuous relationship, and I do miss her dearly, but we have to go on in our lives. We'll never be good with one another, and and I'm not trying to say that she is the lonely girl. I'm not going to try to insult her on TV here and all that, but there's actually a couple people I know that do kind of fit that profile a little bit. But I dedicated it to that person I didn't once love, and that I missed dearly, but you know, I'm a writer. I mean, you get over somebody, you drink alcohol and you write a book. So, so it is therapy, and it was therapy for me to be able to do that. It's what Graham Greene said, you know, writing is a form of therapy. You know, everybody should do it. I don't know why those who, you know, compose, paint, write, you know, can't, and I'm paraphrasing, you know, to escape the melancholy madness, panic, and fear that's inherent in the human situation. So I, you know, laid to rest a lot of things within me to write that book and be done with it. And, you know, I did answer a question that I had. And once I was done with my final draft and I went to the editors, I was over. I mean, I was over with a lot of the hurt that I had had. So, there you go.
So you use writing as therapy for you?
Well, yeah, I think writers, how do I say this? Writers have two main goals. One is you are telling a story. One is you have a story that maybe is posing a question that you want people to try to answer, or you have a really good story that you want to show somebody else because you want somebody to learn from it. But the other thing too is maybe that story is for you to deal with. It is your way of dealing with something. You trying to answer that question. And the more, you know, when you write it out in a journal or you write it out in a fiction or nonfiction novel and put it out for the rest of the world, you are getting over something. You are, you know, coming to an answer. This is the best way to say it. And then, you know, once you're done, it's kind of like, okay, I can go on to something else now. Some novels are for pure entertainment because you want to entertain people. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think the really great stories that are emotional and dramatic and all that are, you know, your own way of trying to deal with something. You know, I don't credit a lot of mainstream writers because there isn't any of them that really interest me. I mean, I like Stephen King, great writer. You know, Grisham is a great writer too, but he has this little formula. But there is one writer that I do kind of pay tribute to more than anybody else, and it's Jodi Picoult.
Okay.
Because she doesn't, you know, as a female writer, she gets out of that stereotype as a female writer that, you know, not everything's going to be happy, that is kind of tragic, but, you know, she does take her characters on this emotional journey about dealing with something extraordinary, and I commend her for that as a writer, because I think that's what you should do. And, you know, and I'm sure that in her own way, she has, you know, dealt with things that she's put on the pages of her books and, you know, comes to terms with a lot of things in her life by doing that. I mean, I don't know her personally, but, you know, from one writer to, you know, another, I would assume that there's a part of that, you know, therapy for her to get over something and try to answer a question. And then, you know, once she's done with the book, she goes on to something else. So, Hemingway did it, Fitzgerald did it, you know, Steinbeck did it. I mean, that's part of being a writer. I mean, same thing with musicians and, you know, people who do films. You can't tell me that Steven Spielberg directed Schindler's List. You know, there wasn't something that he wasn't dealing with, some emotional journey on in his life. And I think that's very evident that comes across, you know, in that film. So.
How would you describe your personal writing process?
Well, I'm a very organized writer. I outline everything. I want to know who my characters are. I want to know, kind of break the story down from, you know, point A to point Z and all the letters in between, you know, trying to break it down by chapter. But I usually start with one line. And then I have an ending line. It's a trick that I credit to Norman McCullough, the one who wrote A River Runs Through It. And then the movie was later directed by Robert Redford. You know, the book starts out with, you know, one time my father said, Norman, you like to write stories. Well, maybe one day